Alright, let's start this out. I'm building a door for the Chinook camper. Rear entry door. First of all, go ahead and just click away from this video if you don't like time-lapse and voiceover. I'm trying this for this video, we'll see how it goes. I'm in Fusion 360 designing the door. Most of these measurements change, so don't try and copy any of this. If you can see it on camera, it's blurry, so it is what it is. First off, this is going to be a full aluminum door, insulated with a window, off-the-shelf window, and door handle this time. I designed a steel door a while back, like 4 years ago for the Chinook camper, and it was nice for a while, and then it started to get rusty. So this is the Langmuir Systems Crossfire Pro with THC, torch height control. As you can see with the thinner aluminum, I have to kind of keep an eye on it, hold the material down to keep it from warping as it goes, otherwise I'll get some inaccurate cuts. Pretty easy to design parts and send it over. And then hit print basically. Now we're on to building the aluminum frame. I'm doing this with a spool gun on the Vulcan Omni Pro 220. If you wanted to get into welding, if you're like, hey, I might like welding, first of all, just go and spend 10 hours with an angle grinder, and that'd be a good determination if you like welding. Because the welding part's only a couple minutes, and then you have 2 hours of grinding, especially if you're bad at welding. Then you have more grinding. Fireball tool, mega square, and other squares are a lifesaver for anybody that doesn't have a fixture table or a really good welding setup. As I'm sure you guys have seen if you watch my channel, I'm mostly just welding on the floor with my hunched over back and poor posture. So these help with at least getting the work correct. Doesn't help my back, but that's not on them. Work on a table. My tables are always covered in junk. Get that nice and square. I think one of the hardest parts about designing and building projects, just in general, any fabrication stuff that I do. I went to school for mechanical engineering for years, even starting in high school. We had college engineering courses that I took, and engineers are taught that you want everything to be as tight of tolerance as possible, to have optimized fitment and whatever you can think of. And then mechanics and fabricators are like, no, we need room, we need space, because things exist in that space and there's conflicts within that. So deciding when to give yourself gap and tolerance and how much is probably the hardest part about fabricating and designing stuff. You have to reconcile the engineer side of your brain that wants to keep everything nice and tight, and then you have to reconcile that with the inconsistencies in the world and how nothing is perfect. So finally getting better at that, so when I'm designing stuff, I'm giving myself enough space that it actually functions. Sorry, engineers. Make stuff so it's serviceable. I'm also getting better about prepping my work in advance, so prepping tube and sheet and stuff like this before I get to the finished product and then have to paint it, and it's a lot harder to prep. So going through sanding this with like 80 grit with a little DA sander, getting all these sheets ready to go. I did end up having to change a few of these designs from when I first did it in CAD, and then I updated the CAD file after. So these doors are going to be for sale on my website soon. So if you do want a bomb-proof Chinook door that's fully insulated, fully aluminum, will never rust, you'll never have a problem with your door again. This fits onto the factory Chinook frame. So basically all you have to do is drill a few holes and throw a couple rivets in or screws, and you got a door that's good to go, window that is tinted glass and has a privacy shade. So if you're interested in that, I'll be getting a link up on this video soon when my website is up, and I'll also be selling a lot of RAV4 parts for those interested, and a bunch of other stuff. A lot of stuff for campers. A lot of the stuff is coming off of the plasma table. Anything I can build on there that's repeatable and functional, I will have up for sale soon. Test fitting these outer panels now. I'm going to be using rivets on this and a butyl sealant. Butyl is kind of like the best stuff I've found for camper sealant, keeping stuff dry and long term, because it never really dries, so you never have a point where it like cracks and disintegrates like a lot of other sealants. Butyl from the 1960s in campers is still tacky, so it does a really good job with stuff like this. I'm just using this drill guide to keep my holes straight and to space off from the side. Keeps it a little bit quicker than having to measure each individual thing. I did end up having to cut and move the holes for the handle. You may be able to see where I had to weld and trim and move around the handle hole. That would be fixed on the final file that I made. I need more clamps. I finally splurged and bought some $5 Harbor Freight clamps, but even so, I'd like to get like another 20 of those. And then I'd love to get some Fireball Tool ones, but not currently in the budget. Maybe when I get an actual welding table. Just spacing these holes equally as much as possible. They're not perfect. I think I did every like 7 inches on the way vertically up and down and every 6 inches on the way across, so it looks close enough. It's just the way it measured out. Using stainless steel rivets on this. Just a little bit stronger than aluminum. I was worried about aluminum rivets fatiguing over time. Probably not a real scenario that would happen, but I also considered welding the outer skin and then throwing insulation in and then riveting the inside. It would have given it a little bit cleaner of a look, but I prefer having the serviceability of being able to open it up if I needed to. And assembly with the rivets is just a little bit easier. This is 3M Thinsulate insulation. This is the same stuff we used in building the vans. Also the same stuff that you'd find in certain synthetic jackets in the outdoor industry, except it has this matte backing. Pretty easy to work with. Just use 3M glue to hold it in place until the skin is on there. There's that butyl. You can get butyl in tape form, or this is like some sort of butyl rubber sealant. This door, way more weatherproof than the one I made, and it actually has a glass window that I'm using instead of the plexiglass windows that were in the steel door that I made. Plexiglass got all scraped up and the steel started to rust, so I didn't like how that was looking. Lots of rivets. I need to get an air riveter, or the Milwaukee electric one is super nice, but that's like 300 bucks. Air riveters are cheap at Harbor Freight now. Just using gloss almond Rust-Oleum paint like the rest of the truck. Did like 3 or 4 coats on that. It did take like 2 days to dry. And test fitting. Again, these Chinook parts, it's going into the factory Chinook frame, so they really didn't, it's not the highest quality, and they've been 40 years old, so they're not really that square. So make sure to measure. If you're making a part like this, make sure to measure and give yourself some clearance. That's another reason I made the tolerances a little bit looser on this, because even between Kyle's, Chinook, and mine, there were some variances. Same with the holes for the hinges. So I did have to make some changes to the file to make it so this door would fit probably any Chinook, except the really early ones, apparently, the 73 and 74-ish that he had for the Courier Chinook actually had different dimension door. It's like 1.5 inches wider, which is kind of weird. So when I get this up on the site, I'll list the dimensions that it fits, and just make sure your door matches it if you do want to order one from me. It's going to be kind of pricey because aluminum is still crazy expensive, even though scrap price is really cheap right now. So the market is meaningless and inflation is real, and that's the way it is. And then it's just using a window and a handle. The handle's like your standard replacement RV handle, and then the window is a thin shade. It's like AM Auto, I think, is who makes it. Testing that. My door, again, like prototype one, I made it with 1.5 inch square tube and overkill 1/8 inch thick. So the final version that will be for sale is going to be 1.25 inches, so that with the material on the inside and the outside, it actually gets close to 1.5 inches, which is the correct thickness and the thickness the handle works with. And that's a door on a Chinook. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.